Okay, guys, sorry about that. This is take three. Thank you for your feedback through the question box. Appreciate that. We'll move forward here, and hopefully that will take care of it. Appreciate the help behind the scenes here. What we're going to do is talk a little bit about an overview of what enrollment and data platforms look like in the market and what we're seeing in our experience as a third-party administrator, specifically of FSA, HRA, and COBRA. Even though we do other things at ProBenefits, really the enrollment and data feeds are used mostly for FSA, HRA, and COBRA, and primarily COBRA. That's really has a big deal, and our COBRA administration has been a big help to employers over the last few years in terms of COBRA administration. So that's something we'll talk about today. I am joined by Jesse Lawson, who is a member of our tech team, specifically a data and technical support administrator, and one of two individuals who are full-time employees for ProBenefits that handle enrollment and data feeds on a daily basis. And also Charles Crabb, who's our vice president of sales. And Charles and his team work closely with employers and advisors to set up new plans and to integrate those plans into ProBenefits administration, and then work with Jesse and her team regarding the fees. So Jesse and Charles, thank you for joining us, and thanks again to everyone for your patience with the audio issues. Jumping right into it, as some context for this topic and where we stand with enrollment and data feeds, and as an initial disclaimer, as a third-party administrator, we work with employers of all sizes in a variety of geographic locations. We do not know everything about enrollment and data feeds, and we are not a provider of enrollment and data feeds. What we know about it is from our role as a third-party administrator who receives these feeds for purposes of our administration, for employers of all sizes and for different types of plans. So we feel like we've got positive experience, but we want you to know that we don't think we know everything. That said, we hope that what we know will help you as you decide either how best to use the enrollment or data feed that you currently have, the system that you currently have, or as you explore what systems to use for your own plan administration, both with insurance plans and benefit plans, such as the ones that we assist with. Now, the broad context, as I mentioned, the use of these systems has increased significantly in the last few years. Generally, from our perspective, 5 years ago, even 3 years ago, if you had asked us what we do in terms of feeds, we would say if the employer has a feed, we'll be happy to take it. Most of the time, we'd see a payroll feed. Sometimes we would see an enrollment or data feed, and when we did, it was nearly all the time from a large group. Now in 2018, and especially over the last 2 or 3 years, the use of enrollment and data feeds has become more common among groups of all sizes. Large groups are using them in even higher percentages, but even small groups are using them as different enrollment and data options become available in the marketplace. So not only are employers more likely to use the feed, but they are used for more purposes, including the types of plan administration that we do. So that's the broad context. In terms of our approach now, in the last several years now, we welcome the feed. We would love to have it for any employer that we work with for those lines of service. As I mentioned, Jesse, who's with us, is one of two full-time employees here. We've decided to dedicate people, to dedicate resources to the feeds, to even partner with some of the entities that provide the feed so that we've got a positive working relationship, and this feed and the enrollment data process will be effective for the employers and worth the money that the employer is spending on it. So our refocused approach is that we not only will accept the feed, we want the feed. And anytime we have a feed, we're happy about it if it's a quality feed and if it's handled correctly. And Jesse will get into that. At the bottom of the screen are some examples of providers that we work with and some names that you will recognize, but those are not the only providers. We will again accept a quality enrollment and data feed from any provider that'll give it to us and any employer that wants to share that. Charles, did I say that well? Anything you'd like to add there?
Yes, and I think if you'll move on to the next slide, you'll see some of our numbers that show or reiterate what Jason just said, that the trend is moving towards file feeds. And so how we do administration of FSA and HRA and COBRA is changing because of that, because we are relying on those feeds. And so the number of clients that are using these types of benefit admin systems, sending us file feeds for enrollment data, for ongoing eligibility, terminations, new hire is increasing. So what started out as just a small group of clients using this technology is now becoming something that's more and more popular. In fact, I'd say, we're getting to the point where it's almost unusual for a new client coming on not to be associated with some type of file feed that, they're telling us we're going to be sending our enrollment through a data file feed. So we've responded to that, as Jason pointed out, adding staff. We've already developed a large amount of experience with these types of file feeds and how they work with a variety of different vendors, et cetera. So we feel pretty confident that we're responding to the changes in the marketplace with experience and expertise, and we feel very confident that we can work with, any client, with any vendor, assuming that the data feeds are quality and in a format that we can use and manage. And Jesse's going to get into that as we move forward through the presentation with regard to what we need in a file feed and how these things work and how best to integrate those systems.
Thanks, Charles. And as building on Charles's statement, Jesse, would you talk to us about integration and specifically what the file feed is and what it needs to look like?
Hi, everybody. So just generally wanted to talk about even what a file feed is just to get started. What we call a file feed or a data feed or an EDI feed, we use those terms interchangeably. Basically, it's just an electronically transmitted file, usually an Excel or text file, and it contains data that pertains to the maintenance of your employees' benefits, enrollment information, stuff like that. And these files are generally, you contract or employer groups contract with your data provider, which is usually your payroll or benefit software vendor, and that and it's built for you specifically by your data provider, and is fed over to us, and it is a one-way feed. So when you enter information in your system, it flows over to us automatically, essentially, and that's usually scheduled. So that's what the file feed is. There's many iterations. We can get these for FSA, for COBRA, for things like that. So if you'll go to the next slide. To get started basically with a file feed, basically again, your software vendor, your data provider is the one that's going to be sending us the data. So you do need to initiate that with them, and then once you do that, they'll contact us for setup. And I am the contact here for new file feed setup. My information is on this slide. And basically what that setup process entails is we do a lot of back and forth with your data provider to make sure that everything's going to be set up properly. We provide the information templates that we need. They prepare the file for us. It's specific to you, and then we'll do a testing phase. And basically they'll provide test files, and they're reviewed for data accuracy and also to make sure the format is what we need. Then that takes some back and forth, and then once that is complete, then we go into production. And basically that term just means we're getting a regular file scheduled and we're processing the data from that file. So during testing, we're not processing data from the file and putting it into our system, because that is our sort of testing environment. That's the bubble that we use to make sure that everything is accurate for you. And then once we sort of give the okay that everything's accurate, we move in production. And then once receiving the file, we are updating the ProBenefits system from that data. So that's kind of an overview of what it would look like if you were going to get a data feed set up with us.
And Jesse, this is Charles. I'll jump in here. I'm just scrolling through some of the questions that have come in, and most of them are on the lines of, do you guys have preferred payroll vendors or other vendors that you work with? And there, a lot of the questions have specific examples. Do you work with X, Y, and Z payroll company? Would it be fair to say, Jesse, that we can basically work with any of these vendors? I would say most of the vendors that are out there, whether it's payroll or benefit admin systems, have a good reputation. They work with third-party administrators like ProBenefits, and so they have systems set up in place that make it easy for us to work with them, and we certainly, are no different than any other FSA administrator or COBRA administrator, and have the ability and capability to work with. So to answer the question that have preferred vendors or people you prefer to work with, I think the answer is no. We basically will work with any of the reputable payroll companies that are out there.
Yeah,
they all have pretty standard processes for integration and setup.
Yeah, we work with quite a few different vendors. Again, as Jason mentioned earlier, we have a large variety of clients and sizes and where they are, and there's so many different vendors on the market that are doing this that we will accept a file from anyone. Now there are some that will only work with ones that they're some payroll vendors or some data providers will only work with a set group, so that may restrict us, but generally speaking, I have not found that to generally be a problem. We work with so many different ones. We'll accept data. If they're willing to send it, we're willing to accept it. So. Okay. So the next thing I wanted to talk about is basically once you have a file feed, what can you expect at that point, at least from the ProBenefits perspective. So basically the file feed is going to, again, pertain to your employees' benefits and enrollment. So all the new hires and changes and terminations that you would send to ProBenefits for FSA administration or also in a COBRA context, that's what the file feed would be replacing. So it's not eliminating all interaction that we would have with our clients, with our employer groups, but that's a big bulk of time that you would probably spend that is now eliminated and can be replaced by a file feed. So it is still a great help in time management. I also want to emphasize again that these are one way. So I'm often asked if we talk to certain companies or whatever. We receive information. We don't have a way to send it back. So this is all a one-way flow. So you have to think about it that way. Some examples for that, particularly in COBRA administration, for example, we get questions on reporting directly to carriers. We do not report COBRA elections or terminations to the carriers directly. Your I'm sorry. I was muted and I apologize. I guess I'll start again. I'm not sure. I was talking about that file feeds are one-way communication. So, when you enter information in your benefit software, it's going to flow through to ProBenefits, and so we get reporting that way. And that's the one-way flow of information. A common question that we get is if we do reporting directly to carriers for COBRA administration, we do not report COBRA elections or terminations to the to the carrier, your insurance carriers are contracted by you and will not accept enrollment information from a third party such as ProBenefits. So we report those events to you through our COBRA website, and you would then update your carrier, but again using your benefit software to have that information flow to your medical carrier. So and then so you're like the hub, and all of your insurance vendors are like an arm extending from you. So that's how the flow of information is going. If you want to go to the next slide. Okay, so there's some times where we still need to talk to you, our clients, things that are not covered by the file feed that we still encourage you to do, because these are important things for your daily administration, like reviewing the invoice and reports relating to the plan regularly. We send a lot, for our COBRA plans, we send a lot of reports monthly to let you know who's on COBRA, the payments that we're sending you, who we've sent notices to, who's in their election period, all those kinds of things. Those are informational reports that are for you, and we encourage you to review those and look at those, invoice included. Reconciling your bank accounts. Clearly, we're providing you with information in order for you to do that, but you know, your accounting is still your accounting. So if you have questions on money movement, we provide a lot of reports, like I said, mentioned for COBRA and also for FSA. You're getting reports and emails on card transactions and any drafts relating to that, drafts for claim payments, all that kind of stuff. Our account balance report that we send monthly. These are all reports and things that you should be reviewing and using to reconcile your bank account. Also, if you need to take action on any items that we alert you to, as I mentioned earlier in the COBRA administration, if there's someone who's elect COBRA and they've made their first payment, we're going to alert you so that you can update the carrier, and then we'll also send you the funds for their premium. And again, you're the one who's maintaining the list bill for your insurance carrier and making premium payments to them, so we're forwarding the money to you. So that's all, again, we're doing all the communication with the participant and sending all the required notices, and we get that information from the file feed, but those particular things, as it pertains to the insurance, that's still going to be something that you would do. I also want to talk about renewal. Renewal and re-enrollment, basically, that's a time for us to recap and refresh your plan, make sure everything's up to date, and if you have plan changes, we need to know. So responding to us timely at renewal is really, really important for us to make sure we have everything in place for your plan. That information is not coming through on file feeds, and so it's still very important that we have this communication with you at renewal. In the context of FSA and our HRA file feeds, usually an enrollment census can be provided by your file feed vendor as part of their service, but do ask them about it, because some don't provide it automatically and they only provide it upon request. So that's something you may not be thinking about even if you have a file feed, but almost all of them that I know will do it. Also, discrimination testing. It's a service that we provide for our FSA clients, and it requires some very specific data about your pre-tax benefits, not just FSA, but all pre-tax benefits. And so in order for us to do that testing, we have to have quite a lot of specific data relating to your pre-tax benefits, and that's not always accommodated in the file feed itself. So we may ask for that information at renewal. That doesn't mean that your file feed isn't working. That just means that we are doing this extra service for you, and we're making sure that your plan is in compliance. And so we may ask for extra data, and so that we can provide that service for you. So.
Yeah, Jesse, this is Charles again. I'll jump in to sort of add to what you've just covered there on that slide. Oftentimes when I'm speaking with benefit brokers or advisors and clients or new clients, there is a tendency to think that the file feed is going to replace all necessary communication between us, the third-party administrator, and the employer and or advisor. And obviously, I think Jesse's point here is a file feed is a data feed, and it may contain information that we need, but there may be some missing information. So at ProBenefits, I'm very proud of this. Our company is going to do everything we can to make sure we provide the service that we think is necessary with regard to compliance, et cetera. So we're not going to be shy about reaching out to our clients and saying, yes, we've received the data through the file feed process. We need additional data in order to provide the quality service that we've promised you. And so communication doesn't stop just because you've signed up and working with a file feed. We're going to reach out. We still need to communicate directly with the client and or advisors and brokers to make sure we understand, the entire benefit picture, group benefit picture, so we can do the discrimination testing, understand plan designs and interactions between the various benefits. And sometimes, with just a file feed on a, spreadsheet and data, it doesn't give us the full picture. So I think we do a really good job of trying to capture the full picture of what's going on with the client so that we can understand the interactions and how testing applies, et cetera. So, I just reiterate the point that Jesse is making here, that file feeds do not replace all communication between advisors, employers, and ProBenefits.
Yeah,
it
thank
just
you,
helps
Charles.
simplify it. It does help simplify it, and helps to consolidate, but it doesn't replace all communication. There is additional things that we reach out to try to understand and communicate between the client and us to make sure we have a full picture of what's going on.
Yeah, I would say having a file feed by itself is really just to help our employers just be smarter administrators. This takes the burden of day-to-day reporting tasks off of them, and then they can really focus their time on the really important things that they need to monitor. So that's how I kind of look at a file feed. It's not saying, okay, now you just don't have to do anything. It's not like that, but spend your time on what's really, where your attention is really needed, and not on those tedious tasks that take up your time day to day. I also want to mention just very quickly with discrimination testing, when we're asking for additional data, many times I've talked to my clients and they say, well, I have that information in my payroll system. You may be able to pull a report from your payroll or software system that has the data that we're looking for. That may not be part of our feed, however, that's still data that you have at your fingertips, and so it's still something that you can likely get to us so that we can perform discrimination testing. Certainly your administrator at renewal is designed to talk to you about those things, but there's almost always a way for us to get that information.
One other question before we wrap up, and Charles, I'll direct this to you. Does ProBenefits charge any fees for accepting enrollment or data files? Charles, can you hear me?
Sorry about that. Yes,
yeah.
There are no additional fees. We don't charge extra. As you mentioned, Jason, sort of the beginning, we actually encourage the policies because we think it simplifies things for our clients to have consolidated reporting capabilities. So no extra fees are involved, so that doesn't impact our proposals or fee schedules at all.
Thank you, Charles. Thank you, Jesse. In the interest of time, we're going to stop there. Attendees, if you have a question now, you're welcome to submit it through the question box, and we'll hang around for a few minutes to answer questions. You can also email those questions to sales@probenefits.com, and we'll be happy to get back to you by email. Thank you for your time today, and again, thank you for your patience with the audio connection issues we had earlier. We're sorry about that. We appreciate the opportunity to work with you. Best wishes for a great rest of the day and week. Bye.